You're listening to the WCEN podcast. Hello, I hope you're all doing well wherever you are today. My name is Peaks and welcome to the WCEN podcast. The reason for this podcast is to keep the community and multi-faith networks informed on services, how to access them and to keep their spirits uplifted. This is a platform to share and express the needs and experiences of what's happening in the communities and on the different things that are going on and how people are coping with the current situation regarding the UK lockdown. We'll be speaking to faith leaders, key community members, members of the healthcare profession and much more. So they're going to be sharing all their tips, ideas, suggestions, and hopefully you'll come away very much inspired. On today's podcast, we have Maurice Mcleod. He is actually a social commentator, a local councillor for Wandsworth in South London, and also a journalist for 25 years covering race, society and politics. So we're going to get him on the line and he's going to share his wealth and experience with us. Councillor Maurice.
How are you doing?
Hi. Excuse me. Morning, Brett. This is Peaks. How are you doing for the WCN podcast?
I'm doing well, thank you.
All right, good. So I've just given our listeners a little introduction, but I would love for you to, if you could just give us a little bit of background history on who you are, what it is that you do, and we'll kind of take it from there. So if you could just give us a little intro.
Okay. Gosh, where do we begin? So I'm at the moment I'm a local councillor here in Wandsworth in South London. I represent a part of Battersea. For the last 25 years I've been a journalist and a writer, so I write social commentary. I started off on The Voice newspaper way back in Brixton about 25 years ago. I ran a platform called Media Diversified for quite a few years recently, which was a platform for Black and Asian writers. And I write for The Guardian, The Spectator, sometimes The Independent, and I do sort of quite a few media-type appearances to talk about social issues. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot. I mean, so just going back to Maurice Mcleod, that sounds quite Scottish. What's kind of your heritage there?
Okay, so the Mcleod, I'm Jamaican. My family is Jamaican heritage, and as I'm sure you know, Scotland had quite a part to play in the colonisation of Jamaica. It's why the Jamaican flag and the Scottish flag, the Jamaican flag is the Scottish flag, but with different colours.
Yes.
And if you check it, most often you'll meet Jamaicans and they'll have Scottish sounding surnames like McLeod and Nelson and such. It's because of the Scottish influence on the slave owning colonial history of Jamaica.
Okay, well, there you go. So social...
A bit of history, yeah.
This is what it's all about, sharing the experiences and the wealth of knowledge. And obviously you deal with all this kind of stuff within your line of work. So, I mean, social commentary, for people who have never really heard of that, I mean, we've kind of heard about the councillor and we've kind of heard about, obviously, journalism, but social commentary, I mean, that's maybe something that people may not really know about. So could you explain a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah. So I suppose all I mean by that, it's a very fancy way of just saying that I'm a writer. Because I used to be a journalist, so I was trained as a journalist. To me, a journalist is someone that specifically doesn't just write what they think. They go out, they interview people, they look at the evidence, and they present a story based on sources and evidence.
Yeah.
A writer or a social commentator, which I think is more what I am now. Basically, I just get to write what I think about something. So, my view on the coronavirus, and this is what we need to do afterwards. And it doesn't. To me, it's less based. You don't necessarily go out and interview people. You don't. You base it on your experiences and your knowledge and stuff like that. So, for instance, when something happens to Meghan and Sky News ask me to go on, I'm going on to commentate on what the impact of this news is to society, or what it means to society. So it's that sort of thing.
Okay.
So I get to spout my opinions on the media.
Okay, excellent. So you're kind of a voice for the kind of larger public at hand, as well as obviously sharing your own kind of views and opinions and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we all. I don't really believe in the idea of a sort of objective journalist, a journalist that doesn't come with an opinion and just tells the fact. We all bring our experiences to whatever job or role we do. So yes, it's basically. It's still sadly the case that people from where I'm from, which, I've grown up on council estates in South London my whole life, in Wandsworth, in fact, my whole life. And there's still very few voices from where I'm from in the media. So when someone's talking about, I don't know, some inner city issue, even though I'm not a young man anymore, I'm 50 years old.
Wow. If you see this picture, when you see the screen capture of this interview, you do not look like that. You have to share some of those tips there for that good living.
Well, thank you. I think my daughter touched that up to make my head look less shiny. So full disclosure.
Okay,
she's
shout out to
looking
your
out for her dad. No, so what was I saying? Sorry, but the compliment threw me there.
You were just talking about you can't really be subjective within the journalism. You kind of have to bring it on.
You're always bringing your opinions. Everyone does. They bring their opinions to whatever they do, their experiences and their knowledge. And the reason it's important to have proper diversity is that at the moment within mainstream media, pretty much all the voices and experience come from the same place. So they've all had a relatively similar upbringing. They've got relatively similar experiences. And so I've always seen my role as someone that comes from a slightly different place to most of them, to be a different voice to the ones going, well, hang on, when this happens on an estate, this is what I see. And it's, I don't speak for anyone else. I only speak for myself, obviously, but at least it's a different kind of voice. So it sort of feels like that role. I've kind of grown into that role, I suppose, through my career.
Okay, I mean that's obviously great as well. That, as you said, there's very few representatives, and you're one of them, so that's great. I mean, regarding obviously the UK lockdown now, if you could give us a little bit of, where were you when you kind of heard the news, and obviously being a councillor, how were you kind of dealing with things on your estate?
Yeah, so with the whole coronavirus thing, as a councillor, actually not as a councillor, just as someone that pays attention to sort of world news and politics, it was clear that this was coming down the line. Experts, both in Wandsworth and abroad and wider, were saying that this is coming. You need to be ready. This is what's going to happen. So for me, it felt it wasn't so much, oh my gosh, we've gone into lockdown, what a surprise. It was, oh wow, we're finally doing this. It felt very slow, if I'm honest.
Okay, and what kind of respect do you mean about the kind of action that was taken there?
Yeah, I'm kind of a bit reticent, if I'm honest, speaks to be critical of the government or the authorities at this time, because I really do think, even though I'm on the opposite side to them politically, I guess, it's not really time for party politics or too much of that stuff. Really, now it's just about looking after as many of our residents as we can and making sure that no one sort of slips through the net. There's so many. What this is exposed to, there's so many vulnerable people out there that really are living in quite extreme conditions already, and this has just really brought those to the fore. So a lot of my effort at the moment is on just supporting whoever I can to support those people. But when the dust settles, when we come out of this, I do think questions need to be asked about. It felt like that the original priority was to save the economy and make sure that the economy didn't take too bad a hit. I don't know, the government's very much moved on from this now, but it felt like the idea of herd immunity and allowing the population to sort of gradually become infected so that then we can then protect the vulnerable. I think that was I think that was a mistake. And I think that we should have first and foremost realised that these are lives. These aren't statistics. These aren't numbers on a graph that go up and down. These are our loved ones, our grandmothers, our aunts, our healthcare workers. Sorry, I went on a bit of a rant there.
I mean, obviously that's what you do. You're obviously a voice for social commentary. You're a councillor as well, and what you see on the estate and everything. So. But yeah, I mean, in regards to the inequalities, I mean, I think you have a very active Twitter feed as well, which you kind of share on there. I mean, just before we get on to that, I mean, where do you kind of advise people to kind of listen out to kind of what's going on, or to be able to find help, obviously maybe within your borough and things like that as well? What's kind of available, and what's the role of the kind of councillors as the lockdown is happening just now? What kind of role are you playing for now?
Yeah, I mean, with regards to individual councillors and other representatives, MPs and whatever, assembly members, everyone is helping in the way that they can, I guess. So, I know that some councillors have been ill or have had ill family members themselves. So it's not a case of, right, every councillor should be doing this, that or the other. I think we should all be doing as much as we can to support our residents. Now, when it comes to people in Wandsworth in particular, the council has set up a helpline number, which I think should be the first sort of port of call for anyone that needs anything. Basically, if you have any issue that's sort of COVID related, if you're self-isolating and you are having trouble getting your medication or your food or whatever it might be, the council's hotline number, can I read it out?
Yes, of course, that would be great, thanks.
Yeah, is 020 8871 6555. That's 020 0208 871 6555. But as well as the sort of official help, we were some sort of colleagues and people that I'm close to in Battersea set up one of these mutual aid groups. Now it's got a Facebook sort of group that's got over 2,000 people on it. But more importantly, it sort of sits on top of a whole range of WhatsApp groups for local areas, so that people really are looking after people on their streets. And one of the reasons that it's been done like that, one is so that it can be managed, because you've got 2,000 volunteers. That's hard for anyone to manage from their bedroom when we're all locked down. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, it's so that there's some security. If you're an old or vulnerable person, to know that the person who's coming to your door to help you or who's dropping stuff off for you is from 3 doors down, and you've seen them grow up. It's a different thing to having some random person turn up, with good intentions or not. I think safeguarding is an issue, basically. So we've been very careful to sort of build in those sorts of measures into what they're doing. But there are so many. I mean, Age UK are helping out. There's the food banks. There's brilliant Waste Not, Want Not. I have to always give a shout out to Hadass on the Doddington estate, who's been running an amazing campaign called Waste Not, Want Not, that provides fresh food basically for the community. And she's been doing this for years, but now she's really coming into her own, and she's doing it both there and on the Patmore estate, which is in North Battersea. So there's amazing people doing brilliant things, and there really is. What I'm hoping comes from this is that we remember how important community is. We remember how much we rely on each other. That we're not individuals just striving with pointy elbows trying to push our way to the top. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
I've used this quote a lot of times. It's one that I'm proud of making up. So I say life is a dance, not a race. We need to remember that, and I think that this has awful, 1,000 people a day at least dying. As awful as this is, at least we're remembering who the real key workers are in society, who's important, why our neighbours matter. hopefully we come out of this as a better society.
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously all these networks that you're setting up, I mean, how do you think that they'll maybe carry on after this kind of lockdown is gone? As you're saying, we're all seeing the importance now more than ever of community and of services and who's vulnerable and who needs access to this. Do you think things are going to change much after, this lockdown kind of hopefully
It's
ends?
a hard one. It's a hard one, because I want to be super optimistic and say yes. I want to say, that things don't go backwards, and that people will remember how important, the various services and organisations were and have been. Sort of the past suggests that what will happen is that some of these organisations will get chucked some money, and maybe there'll be a few, I don't know, OBEs or whatever that fly around afterwards, and then they'll kind of be forgotten, because and I don't want to be even more gloomy, but after we get through this, there's going to be a real pressure to launch back into another era of austerity. The country is going to be, and the world is going to be in such a financial situation that there's going to be real pressure. And I'm sorry to be political, but the government we have at the moment is going to, I feel, be tempted to go towards austerity again, cutting services again. I don't think our communities can take it. I feel like that can't happen this time. That we need to look somewhere else for how we recover from this, and it can't be on the backs of our poorest. We've seen who's turning up on the ICU wards and who's passing away. It's the people in our it's our key workers, it's the people in our poorest communities. We can't put austerity on top of them again after this crisis.
Okay, I mean, this is a time for real conversations, and things are hard sometimes, and obviously we'll get to some other points later on. But obviously, regarding community again, WCEN is kind of like has been doing so much great work within the communities, through faith, through community groups, through events and various things, as you know, because you've attended quite a few of them. How did you come to hear about WCN, and what's kind of been your role with them? Because obviously you're all from Wandsworth too.
Yeah, I mean, WCEN's been around for a long time, so I've always known about them. When I became a councillor, especially because I'm a councillor in Queenstown, which is where WCEN happens to be based. They're on the Doddington estate, which is one of the estates I look after. And very quickly, I went to a Black Minds Matter event and spoke to Malik, and was like, yeah, this is the sort of organisation that I'm really keen to. This feels like the sort of organisation I'm in politics to support. I don't have any lofty ambitions or anything, but I know that certain groups and certain organisations and certain communities are still left behind, and it feels like that's why I'm in politics. I'm in politics to keep reminding people, hey, well, don't forget about us. And so the work that WCEN and Malik and all the team there do is phenomenal. It's really, I went along to one of their events at South Thames College, where there were performances and
that was
the
sorry to cut you in. That was the Black Minds Matters that you actually just mentioned there, which is part of WCN. That's the kind of the youth side. I mean, and the importance of youth in the midst of all this as well. I mean, what's your kind of take on how the kind of role that they're playing with youths, and how important it is to have that kind of side as well, and to develop that part?
It's so important. It's so important, especially for inner city youth. I mean, we've had decades of these young people being vilified, and they're all about knife crime and this and that, and they're looking ahead to bleaker and bleaker futures. And the organisations that are there to support them have been, we know that youth services have been cut down massively over the last decade, and so for the few great organisations there are, like WCEN, to be doing stuff like Black Minds Matter and engaging young people and finding those people that have ability and talent but just don't know what to do with it, and aren't looking. No one's no one's taken the time to really really engage with them and nurture the talent that they have. That's what I saw. That's what I saw at the meetings that I've been to and at the event that we just spoke about. It's just really, it makes me a bit emotional, to be honest. It makes me sound soppy, but it just makes me go, yes, come on. There's youngsters coming up behind who are going to be the leaders of the future. It's uplifting.
And to kind of like young people as well. We've talked about the elder, we've talked about vulnerable and stuff. I mean, if there's any maybe adults who want to like pass a message on to younger people with all your experience and everything, what kind of message would you kind of tell them?
Oh, that's so funny. I don't feel like I have a place to. I mean, who on earth am I to tell anyone how to live their lives? I guess having grown up on estates, as I say, I still live on an estate now. I just the present isn't forever. So you get locked into the really small universe of your estate or your neighbourhood, and everything seems much bigger and more important than it actually is. And that, when you come out the other side of that, and often that's just with age, you hit sort of mid-20s or something, and you go, God, what was all that about? And but at the time, it feels like either the most important stuff in it's life or death, and sometimes sadly it is. But it feels like the most important stuff in the world, or you'll never meet a partner, or you'll never do this, and it feels so huge. But sort of when I look back, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that was just a phase, and that's just a thing. But it should be so now, as a 50-year-old, I even with this awful situation we're in, the pandemic and everything, I go, this is absolutely awful. We need to look after everyone we can, but I know that there'll be a bit where we come through the other end, and we're looking back on it. But everything passes, basically.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, and also, the community, do you think they should be less dependent on maybe government services, or, obviously with the community groups, and you talk about setting up things like the food and all that kind of things. How do you think the community should work more together to empower themselves?
Yeah, it's slightly different. Weirdly, I don't think that it's a case that the community should be less dependent on government services. Those services are there for everybody, and the fact that they're not, they don't work well for some of those communities. They don't work well. That's a problem that the authorities need to sort out. So I don't see it that way. But at the same time, we can't sit around and wait for that. We need to look out for each other. We need to make sure, we need to make sure that our people are okay. So it's not so much. I think you need both, basically. I think that when our communities learn to have faith in each other more and have trust in each other, and self-investment and all that kind of thing. When we do more of that, we won't need the support from the government so much. It's almost the other way around. I don't think it's that we shouldn't have it. I think it's sadly that we don't have it. So therefore, we need to do something. And organisations like the ones we've spoken about are doing it, and it's great.
Excellent. Obviously, that's kind of the work of what WCN is all about. Faith groups, community groups, people taking action, volunteers. There's so many ways that the people can put a little bit more power back into their hands. And obviously, that's the aim of this podcast as well, to share that wealth of experience, who's out there, who's within your community, and how people of different ages, different races, different religions can all empower themselves together. So it's a really great cause, and thank you so much for contributing. And on a final note, kind of obviously in the wake of this lockdown and what's happening worldwide and everything, what's kind of like your kind of stance now? Obviously, I don't know how it's kind of changed your outlook on anything. What's kind of stood out to you the most about this? Kind of, what's the most prominent thing that's kind of stood out to you?
In a weird way, it's not changed my outlook on anything. It's reaffirmed my view of society. It's reaffirmed my view of who and what is important. Which jobs are important, which roles are important, which structures matter to us. At the end of the day, no one's crying out, going, oh my God, we need more fund managers or hedge fund managers. People saying, where are the cleaners? Where are the bus drivers? Where are the nurses? Where are the doctors? These are the people that I've always known are the backbone of our country. And I just hope that we as a society get to remember that at this time, and that stays afterwards. We don't just sort of go back to how things were.
And during, obviously, this lockdown, what would kind of like your advice be to people? We don't know how long it's going to last or whatever. We just have to keep watching, how the news kind of changes. Like, what would you advise people, during this, how to kind of make the most of maybe what's going on? Or like, what would your advice be to people who are just in their house now, just kind of...
Yeah. Well, there's so many, let's be honest, there's so many people in so many different situations, aren't there? So some people are relatively comfortable and they've got houses with gardens and it's okay, and they might be a bit bored, and but then at the same time there are other people for who this is hellish. They've got 4 kids in a 2-bedroom house and they've got no garden and no, so we have to acknowledge that we're all going through this in different ways. But for those in more comfortable, more who aren't in such awful situations, this is such an amazing opportunity to take a breath, to step off of the rat race, to think about your life and think about what things are important. I hope that we don't just go straight back to 9 to 5, nose to the grind, rush hour type living after this, and people go, you know what, I can sort of work from home a bit more, see the kids a bit more, Hopefully that comes from it. Embrace this rare, I don't remember an opportunity like this. As much as it's awful and as much as it's scary, embrace the fact that life has to slow down and that we can all take a breath and think about the things that really matter, which hopefully is our loved ones and our health and our, and our intellectual and well-being, that sort of thing.
Yes, and now you're making me emotional now by the end of it. Oh, that was very beautifully put. So thank you so much for that. Is there any final kind of links, or how can people keep in contact with you? As you say, you're very vocal on social media. So is there any links that you want to give out there?
I'm around. So what we've done in Queenstown is we've tried to put leaflets. I mean, there's a lot of leaflets that have gone through people's doors, I think, with people offering help. But we've done one as well because we're the local councillors and people might know us. I'm on Twitter as Mo Words, and anyone's free to engage with me on there. I'm sure whichever area you're in, I think the mutual aid groups are great. Just make sure that you've got as many routes to support as you can, and we'll get through this. We'll get through this together.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will speak to you soon.
Take care.
So that was Councillor Maurice of the Wandsworth Council. Shared a lot with us there. There's a lot to reflect on. So that was Maurice Mcleod. We'll drop the links below if you want to go and find out and check out his Twitter feed, and also the phone number that he left as well if you're local to that area and you want to get more information about the services. So that's it for today's show. If you have any feedback, tips, experiences that you maybe want to leave, any comments, then please do in the information down below. If you want to contact us, possibly be involved in the show, then please contact us on info@wcen.org.uk. You can check out the website. We have the podcast show on there as well as more information. It's updated very frequently. You can check us out on www.wcen.co.uk. And finally, to find out more about government and healthcare guidelines for the most up-to-date resources, then please check out www.gov.uk. You can also check out www.wandsworth.gov.uk. So that's it. Please follow and subscribe and share these podcasts. We'll see you soon. Be safe and be blessed. Thank you. You're listening to the WCEN podcast.